morning. I'm also a shrink, so that's all. Dennis will set us all straight afterwards. He'll be the tonic to three mental health people in a row. I'm Sherry Hamby, and I am from the University of the South and the Appalachian Center for Resilience Research in Tennessee. I live in the mountains of Tennessee, and I do research on child victimization. And I wanted to hopefully leave you with 3 points that I'm here came all the way this way to try to talk about today. And I want to start with a quote from Desmond Tutu to help illustrate the first. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. So the first message is that I think it is extremely important in any setting where children come into contact with safe adults that we be firmly on the side of child protection and nonviolence and not be afraid to ask that question or to engage those issues, even if it is something that we ourselves might be uncomfortable with. I get told all the time that that I'm seem perfectly comfortable tossing around terms that a lot of people are not comfortable doing, but it only takes a little bit of practice. You say them out loud in front of a group a couple of times, and and you get used to it, and and that it really is something you can do for children that I think maybe is a little bit more like the first two speakers said, but I try to re-envision it more as really being an integral part of your goals as educators and as teachers, that you are trying to promote and facilitate the development of these children and try to help them reach their potential, and there's no way that they can possibly do that if they are in danger on a daily basis and you're acting as if that's not the case. And so if you really want to embody all of the ideals of any professional who works with youth, then I think that involves being willing to address issues related to child protection. The second issue is that it's come to my attention, even in the short time that I've been here, that you have been focusing because of some particular cases on the issues of child sexual abuse, and those are certainly really essential, critical issues. But my work and the work of my colleagues, and I would say the work in the United States in general, is moving towards this idea of polyvictimization, or the web of violence, and understanding, as Lois referred to, that there are lots of vulnerabilities, and it's these vulnerabilities that exist across a lot of different settings that make children vulnerable to experiences of victimization. And it's very seldom, actually, when you see someone who's been a victim of sexual abuse, those children are almost never what we call mono-victims. It's unusual that that's the single type of victimization that they've experienced. About half of them are what we call poly-victims, the most highly victimized children in a community that in the United States, they have to experience at least 7 different types of victimization. But virtually all of them will have experienced multiple forms of victimization. And so to be keen on understanding this whole web of violence and being willing to even go beyond sexual abuse into understanding safety issues for children. And then the third issue that I would just like to raise before we open it up for discussion is a shift to a more strengths-based and resilience approach. So nobody really grows up and think, well, when I grow up, I just really hope that I never meet clinical criteria for major depression. That's not how people envision their hopes and dreams about themselves. They want to thrive, they want to succeed in life. But too often, a lot of both our prevention and our intervention programs are just about getting people out of dysfunction to the sort of minimally functional level. And I would like to encourage you to envision shifting that to something that's more strengths-based and thriving-focused. If you really take a web of violence perspective, Another problem with a lot of our prevention programs is that even when we go into high school settings and we work with 15, 16, 17-year-olds and we're doing, say, dating violence prevention or sexual assault prevention, we tend to act as if all the kids in the room are non-victims and the goal of this prevention program is to stop them from becoming victims. But if you're sitting with a room of 15 and 16 and 17-year-olds, you are not sitting in a room full of non-victims. I talked about this a little bit yesterday, and there's a timer. That's very convenient. Okay, so I have 4 minutes left, so that's good. That we tend to make this sort of us-them dichotomy with the way we talk about abuse and victimization, but everyone here has survived to adulthood, which means that probably all of us in this room have been exposed to some sort of victimization or violence. If not most of us have probably had at least one or two experiences of bullying, or maybe we have siblings that we used to fight with. Even if we haven't been exposed directly to more serious types of victimization, we almost certainly have loved ones who have had that experience. And so a lot of prevention needs to not think about taking a bunch of idealized non-victims and keep them from ever getting any exposure, but how to cope with the exposures that all of us are going to eventually encounter in life. I like to ask people what the most violent subgroup of the population is. Does anybody have any ideas about what the most violent subgroup of the population in any community would be? Yes, it is. It's toddlers. They're monsters from, a criminal justice point of view. You go out to any daycare center or playground, and just 10 minutes of observation, you're going to see assault. You're probably going to see aggravated assault because they use weapons a lot. You're going to see muggings. You're going to see property crimes. You're going to see lots of emotional abuse. And so right, I've got 2 children also, as you were mentioning, and so it's really important to understand that the task is not to take these little idealized bundles of joy and protect them until they get to adulthood, but it's to take those monsters who are also the worst recidivists that you're ever going to find, because if you do stop them from whatever, felony they're committing at the moment and put them in timeout or whatever it is that you do, what will happen is that typically they'll reoffend within just 2 hours. So we're trying to take that group and we're trying to get them to where hopefully most of us are, which is where our aggression has been muted to the occasional snarky comment, right? And the idea is just to have that downward trajectory as quickly as possible. And when you take a more developmentally informed approach to prevention, then you start to see that this sort of piecemeal and siloed approach where we come in and do dating violence one time and bullying prevention the other time and good touch, bad touch the other time, that doesn't really make sense, and that what we need is a more integrated approach that starts much younger. You really need to start in the primary grades, and don't necessarily hit them over the head with, someday you're going to go on a date and you have to watch out for that person, but to start them with the skills that we all need for conflict resolution, for for building confidence, for learning how to be assertive in lots of different interpersonal interactions, getting your needs met. I mentioned yesterday, and I'll be probably talking a little bit more later this morning, about using narrative and storytelling whenever form is appropriate in your community or in your classroom is a great way to help kids use story to sort of integrate their experiences and turn them into something that can be post-traumatic growth instead of post-traumatic stress. So I will stop there with a whole minute to spare, and I will turn it over to Dennis, leave you with those thoughts.